Guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock, which means it's time for a Talk Magic. And now I have on the channel somebody I'm so excited to chat to. I, Eric is an amazing, absolutely amazing, phenomenal magician, a creator, one of the nicest people in magic. I have tried to get him on the channel for ages. We actually filmed this once before, and there were issues with the edit. So Eric's been super nice enough to actually let me interview him again. That's the type of guy he is. He's also the recipient of the Magic TV Best Trick of the Year Award 2020. And he just blows my mind every single time he performs magic for me. I am, of course, talking about the one and only Eric Stevens. How you doing, mate?
I'm doing great, Craig. How are you?
I'm so excited that you are here on the show.
It's great to be here, man.
Super exciting. How are you? How are you over there?
I'm good. I'm good. It's warm. It's very warm right now. This area of Washington State is really, this area of the country has been experiencing record temperatures, and there are some fires around the area. Actually, it's been kind of scary, but fortunately, nothing close enough to worry me. But I am very, very grateful as always for the men and women that go out and fight that stuff every night and protect our homes and our livelihoods.
Oh, absolutely. Kind of puts into context that we just do card tricks, right? But you especially do card tricks, and you do them really well, and not just card tricks. I mean, I meant what I said earlier on. Every single time that you show me something, it's always really out the box thinking. It's like really, really unlike you see a lot of people who create magic, and they basically follow the same sort of pattern, and it's just a variant on something else. But every time you show me something, there's new principles, there's new concepts, there's new moves. Your thinking when it comes to creating magic is just otherworldly. It really is.
Well, thank you, man. I mean, I bow down to guys like Nick Lawrence, Matthew Bish, and Michael Chadlan. The guys that and Gaetan Bloom. The guys that really take things and create something that is out of this world. I really just try to create magic that makes me feel good and also makes other people feel good, and really gives me a chance to work out my engineering brain. That's why one of the reasons why I love, because I showed you before we did this interview, I showed you a gimmick that I've been working on, and I built that because I had this vision in my head, and I said I want to build this. One of the things I'm very grateful for is something I've had since I was a kid. It's the ability to see things three-dimensionally in my mind, and so I can see them from any angle. And I did that when I was building things out of Legos. When I would get Lego sets, and I wouldn't have to use the instructions a lot of the time because I could look at the picture and imagine what pieces needed to go on the other side. And that's how I've created several of my effects, is by imagining what it could be and then turning it into something that was. And it's immensely gratifying to see that stuff work in the real world. And when it doesn't, it's even better, because it means I get to learn something new by making it work the next time.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about you, and let's talk about you as a performer. And let's start at the very, very beginning and talk about your career. So, Eric, tell me, how did you get into magic? What's your origin story?
Well, I did get a magic kit when I was about 5 or 6, but unlike most of the magicians that we know, that's not what got me started. I had one, but it didn't bite me. When I was about 8 years old, I was on the floor of my grandma's house. I was just playing with something or other, and she was cleaning some rooms out. And she brought me this little green book called Card Tricks by James Weir, which I still have on my shelf in the hallway. And it probably belonged to one of my cousins. I'm actually not sure. It was never explained. I don't know why she had it. But she asked me if I wanted it, because otherwise it would have gone to the Goodwill. My grandmother loves the Goodwill. And I'm 8 years old, so I said, of course, why not? It's a book. I love it. And I learned as much of that stuff as I could. There were a couple a couple pieces in there that I wasn't able to perform, such as something where the reveal was a 3.5 of clubs, and I didn't have a 3.5 of clubs. I didn't even fathom where you could get one. But I learned the clock trick, with the 12 cards in a row, and then they name a number, and that's the only red one, and all the rest are black or blank. Or I did that trick so often that it wasn't magic anymore. It just became an annoyance. I just did it to everybody because it was so exciting to be able to do it and see it work and watch the reactions of my friends and my family, at least initially, as they went, "Oh, wow, that's really cool." And in my lecture, I talked about how my reason for doing magic has changed, right? So at that point in my life, as a young child, I was doing it because it was fun and it brought me joy.
Right. And when you started doing magic as a young child, the bug bit. Am I right in saying the bug bit? Did you kind of, because we're all there, aren't we? When we find magic, it's almost like that scene in the first Harry Potter when they open Diagon Alley and they realize for the first time that there's like this entire other world that they didn't experience before. And it's the same with you. It's the same with us as magicians. When you start finding stuff like the 3.5 of clubs, and you find magic shops and you realize there's all these weird and wonderful gizmos. It's almost like a rabbit hole that you fall down, and you're discovering new things every day. Is that what happened to you?
Yeah, it's exactly like that. It's almost a metaphorical epitomization of the tip of the iceberg, right? Where you see part of it, but there's this whole giant section that is just below the surface of the water, that there's a part of you that knows it's there, that has always known it is there, but until you see it, until you experience it, you're not willing to acknowledge its existence. And there was that moment for me. As soon as I had that book, I was hooked, and I watched the David Blaine specials in the late 90s. I watched in early 2000s. Chris Angel, of course, when he was doing Mind Freak at the beginning, David Copperfield, naturally. And the more I saw, the more I wanted to see.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
I couldn't walk away. There was no way in hell that I was going to look at this and go, "That's not my thing." That was real magic. And I'm a bibliophile. Books are everything to me, and I read a lot of fantasy, a lot of fantasy novels, a lot of fantasy stories, and that really helped shape my imagination. And so learning about magic in this way and seeing what it could do for people and seeing what it could do for me was almost as if these stories had the depth and the solidity and the legitimacy that I'd always hoped they did. There was something there that I could grab onto that was tangible.
Yeah, that makes sense. That absolutely makes sense. And so, when did you start doing gigs professionally? Because we think of you as somebody who's gone out and gigged for a very, very long time. When was it? You're a kid. You're starting to learn magic. You're immersing yourself in this world. Was there a point where you went, "Oh wow, I can actually do this for money"?
Yeah, I remember doing a birthday party when I was probably 11 or 12 maybe, and here in town, and I had no idea what I was doing. I was performing this things from a magic kit that I had, and I put stuff together, and I just wanted to have fun with it. And I remember one of the adults coming up and handing me a $20 bill afterwards. And I was ecstatic. $20 bill, $20 for an 11 or 12-year-old? That's gold. That's Jeff Bezos money. That's worth so much. And I didn't do a lot of quote unquote professional gigs at a younger age. I did a lot of volunteer work. I performed at the farmers market every Friday, doing walk around for people. And you know how they say you need your place to be bad? I didn't do comedy clubs or anything like that, but the farmers market and surrounding areas were kind of my place to be bad, where I could test out new material, I could see what worked, see what didn't. But I did paid gigs for the church sometimes. I did paid gigs for the Senior Citizens Center occasionally. Again, most of what I did at the younger age, as a tween, that was mostly volunteer work. But I started learning what it would take to make money, and so my first gigs, I was charging $20 for the gig, and now that's nothing, but it was everything to me at that time, was to be able to do something that made other people happy and put some green in my wallet that I could save for a rainy day.
That's great. Well, how many hobbies do you get a chance to actually go out and make money doing it as well? I mean, there's very few.
It's true.
That's cool. So, was there a point where you decided to turn full-time professional? So you're doing it as a kid, you're immersing yourself. You've done a few free shows here and there. Did you jump into the sort of the full-time performer bandwagon at some point, maybe after you finished school or university or something?
I was semi-pro for a long time, because I'm not like a lot of our colleagues where magic is all I do. There was a period when that was true, but most of my life has been working day jobs of all different kinds and doing magic on the side. So I never really had the time, nor honestly the inclination to commit to it entirely. But I did have a lot of wonderful experiences doing those gigs on the side, doing birthday parties, doing some corporate events. When I was about, I think I was 18. When I was about 18, I was in my apartment, which I lived right outside of my community college. There was an apartment right across the street, and I was in my apartment one night. The apartment, by the way, in which I watch the Wizard product review every Wednesday with Craig Petty. Sorry, Dave. Craig's my favorite. Got to say it. But I was in my apartment and I was on the computer, and I suddenly had this thought. It just popped out of nowhere. I wonder if there are magicians in my city. Never really thought about it. There were a couple guys locally I'd seen perform, but I didn't know anybody. So I looked it up, and this is in Spokane, is the closest city. That's where I was living at the time. And I saw Spokane Magic Club pop up, and it was IBM Ring 225. And I looked to see when the next meeting was, and it was that night.
Wow.
What are the odds of that, right? That's I don't know if there's a higher power, but if there is, it was working for me. So I got in my car and I drove there, and those guys became my first and best mentors and friends in magic, and they still are. And one day, my friend Ron, who I think was secretary at the time, he says, J. Scott Barry is coming to lecture for us. And at the time, I didn't know who Jay was, but I looked him up. He seemed really great. And he came and blew my mind apart. I had never seen magic done that way. I had never seen it explained that way. I'd never seen it thought about that way. And afterwards, we went to Sherry's, which is kind of like an upscale Denny's. And it's, I'm not sure, just because I haven't been to the UK, but is Nando's on par with Denny's here? Is that sort of?
Yeah, kind of similar sort of thing. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm really reaching here, but I'm just trying to find anything that's relatable, and I'm struggling. But we went to Sherry's for dinner, and Jay and I started talking, and we realized we were very, very similar. So we were musicians, we were magicians, we'd been bullied as kids, we were actors, we were singers, we were dancers, we were in the arts, and this guy had known me for 3 hours, maybe. And he says, hey, I'm doing a series of festivals with Maxwell Blade called The Weekends of Wonder, and I'd really like for you to be on the team. 3 hours. And suddenly he's asking me if I want to do this. And I was astonished by it. Now, that was 2013. I wasn't able to that year. But the next year and the year after that, I went on tour with him, and that was where I was able to perform, to meet and perform with Losander, Michael Amar, Jeff McBride, like Daryl, top names were, and I'm 19 years old, and I'm going, okay, of course, it makes sense that they're here. What the hell am I doing here? Like, what what could I possibly contribute that is not, what bases are not already covered by these heavies of magic? But I learned so much about what it took to be a professional, what it took to learn about the business of magic, what it took to create a festival, what it took to book people, what it took to perform magic on the streets, busking, stage magic, how to make my close-up magic better, how to table hop effectively. I just, it was a crash course for 2 years.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. That really is. Wow. I mean, what an experience. What an experience.
I was very lucky. And I'll tell you what else. After doing this stuff for a year, Jay came to me and he said, "Do you have any original material?" And I said, "Yeah, quite," because at that time I had a decent amount. And he said, "How would you like to have your own lecture?" Sure. That's terrifying, but okay. So uh, I think it was 20. I think it was 2015. We were in Old Sacramento. It was either 2014 or 2015. We were in Old Sacramento on the Delta King riverboat, and it was the year that I worked with Daryl. And the Delta King riverboat has a theater inside it, and what we did was I was on stage, and thinking back, I realized how terrible my staging was in terms of what would be easy to see for people, because they sat in the seats and I was on stage and I had a table on top of that. It was, so I brought people up, but it was just it was poor planning on my part, but I didn't, it was my first time. I didn't know what I was doing. And I was giving the lecture and I was performing pieces that I was really happy with. The response was going good. And the way this theater was set up, if you're looking at the seats from the stage, you had a row, several rows of seats in the center, and then you had rows on the sides with aisles, right, from the openings, from the doors, and they go up. Those aisles were pretty dark because most of the lights were focused in my area. Now I'm lecturing, and I'm probably about halfway through before I realize that on my right-hand side, in the dark, in a seat, is Daryl, sitting there watching me. And inside, I screamed. I was just, he was watching me give my first lecture for strangers ever. I had done one before, and that was for my club as a debut, so I could figure out what I was doing. But this was my first ever lecture for strangers, and Daryl was watching it. Now, that's not as bad as auditioning for the castle doing cups and balls for Vernon, but it was pretty intense to know that he was there. And afterwards, he was willing to give me a testimonial about my lecture, which I still put at the top of my promotional material, especially now with him, rest in peace, with him having passed away. It's that much more special to me to have that. And yeah, man, I was really lucky. And I don't take a single moment of those experiences for granted, because there are so many things that I have been fortunate enough to do and experience and see and learn that most people my age will never get to do. And it was because I met the right people at the right time, and I made a lot of mistakes, a lot of them, and I learned from them. And yeah, Jay is a big reason I was able to do that.
Wow, that's amazing. That really is. What a story. And I think that the lessons we learned from there is, when you find yourself in a situation, just just go with it. You know, don't be scared. I mean, you could have very easily seen Daryl out in the front row and just turned around and gone, right, okay, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. But you know, I can relate to that, because I remember when I was booked to do the Scottish Magic Convention as a lecturer, and I'd only just started lecturing, and I was lecturing on card magic and coin magic, and it was probably my 5th ever lecture. And I walk out on stage, and sitting on the front row watching my lecture is Paul Wilson.
Ooh.
I literally considered just walking off stage and saying, sorry, there's been a mistake. He shouldn't be sitting in the audience. He should be up here. I'll take his seat. Like, it was very nerve-wracking.
Oh, I bet you did great though, and yeah, that's I would have a hard time with that. I mean, I've been lucky because I used to live a 10-minute walk away from the castle, so I would go every Friday or Saturday, and I met nearly every magician I've ever wanted to meet. Not all of them, but a lot of them.
Mhm.
And even then, there are still some guys that, if I was in that position, I would just I would joke so bad where I just go, huh, I don't know. I don't know if I can do this. You shouldn't be paying me. You should be paying him for having to watch me. Like, this is not good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. But you know, we think of you as a great close-up performer. I know you do a stand-up show as well, and we'll talk about this in a little bit later on. But we think of you as an amazing close-up performer. Um, at what point, if you don't mind me asking, did you actually start creating your own magic in this timeline? Because obviously, you started performing magic, you've gone out and everything, and you talked about doing this lecture. But what led to you, because you are so creative, what led to you deciding, you know what, I want to start creating my own magic? And was it a desire to share it with magicians, or was it initially you wanted to create magic just for yourself?
I was 13 when I created my first magic effect, and up until then, I just learned from books and DVDs, mostly DVDs because I couldn't afford books at the time, and I got most of the DVDs as gifts, Christmas gifts or birthday gifts. And I was blown away by what people could do, by what people were doing, and I thought, I want to do that. I want to be able to say that I made that. I want to be able to get the reactions those people are getting. What I'm doing, it's okay, but it's not there. Fortunately, I had already spent a lot of time I wouldn't say creating, but making these little variants of things that I already knew, because I thought it might be, excuse me, I thought it might be fun. But I remember, and I will tell you this, you are actually, so, not the reason that I created my first magic effect, but you were involved in it.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know.
I remember seeing you do, if I, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I recall you being involved with Fuse, the Jeff Price's DVD, Fuse.
Yes, I was the guy that sat down and explained it with Jeff, and we went through the
Yes.
different handling. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I love the torn and restored card block. I have a lot of work on it, but I was struggling trying to figure out how to create one that was piece by piece. I just didn't have the know-how yet. I didn't know what to do. But when I saw stuff like Fuse, where it was just a corner, I thought, that's small potatoes. I can handle that. I don't have to do piece by piece. Start with a corner, see where I go from there. And what I did was I created my very first effect called Imperfect, which you can find on Penguin. It's a torn and restored corner. And what makes it special for me is not just how good of an effect it is, because at risk of sounding like I'm bragging, which I'm not trying to, it's a really good effect. And it's also special because of the stipulations that I put on. I was 13 years old, and this was really stupid of me to do this. but I was like, all right, I want to be able to have any card selected, and I want to be able to have that corner marked or signed somehow, and I want to be able to tear it off and show both sides of the card, and then I want to be able to make the corner vanish, and then I want to be able to make the corner come back. Like, the stupid amount of stuff to try and load into this. And I said, I want to be able to do this without gimmicks. And I figured out how. And that's what it became. As a matter of fact, if it's okay with you, I can show it to you.
I'd love you to. Yeah, 100%.
All right. So it would be, you'd borrow a deck of cards. It really doesn't matter. I'm just gonna grab one that's nearby just because it's easy. So we'll just do this one because I like the way these look. So, do you have a favorite card?
Yeah, the Ace of Diamonds.
Ace of Diamonds should be in here. I think this is a full deck. There we go. Ace of Diamonds. Right. So every card has two indexes, a top and a bottom. Which would you prefer, the top or the bottom?
At the top.
The top right here. If you'd said bottom, it would have been a trick question. Now, if you were here, I would have you initial this card. You're not here, so I'll have to just do it for you. But I do want you to see it so that you recognize it if you see it later.
Yeah.
You can see CP.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I'm going to bend this corner back and forth. Okay. And the more I bend it, the easier it becomes to bend. And the easier it becomes to bend, the cleaner the crease gets. And the cleaner the crease gets, the simpler it will become to tear this off. And that's exactly what I intend on doing. And I want you to see. There it is.
Yeah.
It's still there. Nobody ever believes me. You can actually hear it and see it as it gets torn off. Now, I'm going to wave the card over. This. Just take a moment. Disappear. All that you're left with is the card. Now, there's nothing in my hands, Craig. There's nothing in my hands. There's nothing on this side. There's nothing on that side either. It's just gone. But it's not too far gone. It's just in the air. Well, toss it up. It comes back. And you can see CP. You can see the exact spot where it restored itself. And that is imperfect.
That is absolutely brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant. That is amazing. As you say, I know Fuse very well. And that's better than Fuse. I mean, that's incredible. That's
Thank you. Sorry, Jeff. In case you're watching.
Yeah, I love you, Jeff. But I mean, things, you know, things get better over time, and that's brilliant. That's really good.
Thank you very much. And part of it was because, like, when I watched Fuse, there were certain elements of it that I thought, okay, this is really good, and this seems a little shifty. Is there any way to avoid that? Can I make it clean? Can I make it open? Do it with no sleeves? And as you see, it's very open. Yeah. And there's nothing to do. And as a matter of fact, I actually developed a way, and I teach this in the download, and this is an independent discovery of mine. I wasn't able to find any credits on it, so feel free to message me on Instagram at ColorStix with an X if you find the credits. But I developed a way to tear the corner off and put it in someone's hand so they can feel it, and then they open their hand and it disappeared. But it's really easy to do. And actually, I learned something from Daryl. So do you remember Daryl's effect where he would take two jokers and he put them together and then cut them and then pull them apart, and now they're impossible objects where it's two backs and two faces? So what he would do is he would do that effect, then take this impossible object and a miniature stapler, a little stapler, and he would take his business card and staple it to the impossible object so that they have his information, but it also dissuades them from trying to undo it. And I thought, oh, that would be great. So what I used to do was I would take the corner off again. I would staple it in the corner or just on the card, and then I would sign the empty space and put my information. So now they have an object that they can't go back and figure out, and they have my info on it. So again, another thing Daryl taught me. So thank you, Daryl.
That's great. Wow. And did you, so you created that as a desire to improve Fused?
No, not necessarily. I created it as a desire to create a torn and restored card effect that looked good, that wasn't difficult to do. Fuse just happened to be one of the inspirations for it.
But did you create it because you wanted to sell it to magicians, or did that come later when you had the method?
No, I had no desire to sell it to magicians because I was just creating for myself and enjoying the process of creating and seeing if things worked or not. I'm very scientific about it in the sense that I love cause and effect, and I love experimentation and revelation, right? What you learn from the process is often so much more valuable than what the process actually gets you.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when did you think, right, okay, actually I want to start selling this to magicians. I can have a side. I can take my career in a slightly different direction, still carrying on doing what I'm doing, but I can go in a slightly different direction. I can start selling magic to magicians. What was the catalyst that caused that?
That was The Wire, Theory 11's platform, The Wire, because I had for a long time been submitting my ideas to magic companies, Illusionist, Penguin, Theory 11, whatever I could, and I never got any responses. No one ever picked up anything that I did. And of course, they get so many responses, it's impractical to respond to everybody and say, well, here's the reason why we don't do it. But nobody ever wanted anything that I put out. And so I was a bit dejected and frustrated because I wasn't learning. I knew that they didn't like it, but I had no clue as to what was wrong or what wasn't working. And then Theory 11 said, hey, we're creating The Wire where anyone can sell most anything. And I created an account. And it's funny, I only ever sold one effect on there because the other effects that I submitted were not accepted. I couldn't even get that far, but I did get a single effect called Saturation, which is still available on Theory 11 and on Penguin. And it was a 99-cent download because I didn't know worth of anything. I was like, well, if it's too much, people aren't going to buy it. So 99 cents seems fair. And I sold quite a lot of units that way because it was so affordable. And of course, people started reviewing going, man, I would have paid $5 for this. And I'm like, damn it. I should have gone for that, but oh well. And it was a selected card that was signed, and then you would take a penny and put it on top of the card, and they'd cup their hands underneath, and you would shake, and the penny would disappear and reappear in their hands, like it would magically penetrate through. And it was, again, and you know this, Craig, because you've known me for a long time, I like simple. I like direct. I'm not afraid to work for something, but if I can find a faster, more efficient way that doesn't compromise quality, that's what I go with. And so that was the first thing that I ever sold, that I ever realized meant that my things had potential, because now I was receiving affirmation in the form of all these 5-star reviews of people going, hey, I really like this. Hey, this is great. Hey, this is really cool. That's actually how I met Tom Elderfield for the first time and how we started collaborating on stuff. We used to have Skype sessions all the time because he's amazingly creative. If you haven't seen Tom's work, which is hard to believe because it's everywhere, but if you by some chance don't know who Tom Elderfield is and you haven't seen his work, go look for it because the dude is crazy. And I learned that people liked what I was doing. So now all those rejections that I got from magic companies were somewhat in the background. Now they didn't matter as much. They didn't hurt as much. They didn't sting as much because I was receiving affirmation that what I was doing was right somehow. And so that's what got me started selling a couple more downloads, working on learning how to edit, learning how to film, learning what makes a good shot, what makes a good trailer. Uh, as basic as they were, they're not great, but they were pretty good for the time, and eventually led to me releasing my first book.
And here's the point I want to bring up. You then went into publishing books, and you've written several books, not
Yep.
just of your own material, but of other people's material as well. So,
Yeah.
and you don't see many people doing that these days. Most people are, I'm going to put out a download, I'm going to put out a trick, because it's so much easier. What made you decide to go down the book route? Is it because you described yourself earlier as a book lover? Is that, is that the reason, or?
I have always wanted to publish a book, and my family, because I've been a writer my whole life, and my family always said, "Oh, you should release a book. You should write a usually like a fictional story is what they were referring to." But I discovered a route that allowed me to easily and relatively cheaply publish a book of my own, and I didn't have to go through anybody. I didn't have to get permission from someone, like from a company, to say, "Okay, we think this is good or not." I was just able to put something together and design something myself and put it out. And I will say, looking back at that first book, it's cringy. The effect was good, the routine was good, but the design of everything and the photos were too tiny and the too much white space. It was poorly designed, poorly laid out, because again, I didn't know what I was doing. And I'll admit, I rushed it to market a little bit. That's why there were two more versions that came out afterwards that were updated. But nothing beat the feeling of getting that package and opening it up and seeing my words, my work in printed bound form for the first time. That was mind blowing. And I wanted to keep doing that. So I was the one that wrote and designed and produced my lecture notes, and then the books that came after that. And eventually, because my mom's a graphic designer among many other things, and she's very good at it. And I've been watching her my whole life, just watching her on the computer design things, asking questions: why this color, why that, why would you put this line over here? What? And she always taught me, all right, when you're using typefaces, never use more than 3, because otherwise it looks messy and cluttery. Try to keep it to 2. Little details. And my grandma always taught me, pay attention to the little things, because later you will realize they're the big things. And when it came to creating and writing and publishing, it was all about the little things, all about the details, all about creating a quality product.
Yeah. Wow. And you've published how many books now?
Well, for myself, I've done 7.
That's incredible. I mean, that's incredible. And I own all of them, as you know. And they're
So
all
great.
they're all great. They're all fantastic. Are you planning on writing another book at some point?
I may or may not be working on one right now.
Awesome. Okay, well, let me ask you a question. As somebody who has created 7 books worth of material, as well as downloads, as well as tricks, as well as everything else that you do, is there any advice that you can give the people watching this on creativity? Because we've talked about this off camera, we've talked about this before. When people come into magic, they have a desire to be magic famous. And the easy way to become magic famous is to start creating magic. But the problem is, and you know that I'm a big, it annoys the hell out of me, is the quality control. There's a lot of really bad downloads that come out. There's a lot of really bad tricks that come out. So for somebody watching this that wants to become, the next Darryl or the next Michael Amar, and they want to start releasing magic, do you have any advice both in terms of the creativity process and also publishing material? Because you've published material through various different companies and you've also self-published. So there's not many people who have as much experience as you. So yeah, big question, but creativity and also
Yeah, for sure. I would say, first of all, if you're going to put out a download, make sure your pants aren't too tight, because I've heard that that can really cause problems. Sorry, there's, you have to watch the Craig's videos to get that. That was more of a joke for me and him. Um, no, honestly though, if you are creating magic with the intention of being known or famous, stop. Just stop. Your magic magic does not exist for us. Magic exists for them, the people on the outside. We are the ones that have the opportunity, the incredible opportunity to create wonder and intrigue and inspire people and generate feelings that are beyond the monotony of normal life. And while I'm sure it's great to be, Dynamo or Nick Lawrence, or people with names like Craig Petty, people with names that that you love, that you recognize, most of those people got there by working their ass off, by working really, really hard to create quality products with the intention of bettering the craft. Because I do not think magic is an art. I think it is a craft. It has the potential to be elevated to an art, but it takes work. And if you're not willing to put the work in for the sake of the craft, then then just don't do it. It really needs you to burn the candle on both ends. And I've worked really, really hard for a long time to create magic. And I'll be honest, initially some of the magic that I created, I put out because, well, I think this is really cool and it's going to make me some money and that would be great. And that was a foolish way of thinking, but I was also really young and I didn't know better. But I am telling you, and Craig will tell you, and many other people will tell you, that's fine. But you really need to look at your ability to create, your ability to produce, and ask yourself if you're doing it for the right reasons.
Yes.
When it comes to publishing material in any way, whether it's a book or download, whatever you're choosing to do, credit, 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 credit. Do your research. I know you've probably heard that hundreds of times from Craig and other people, but that's because it's still true. You really need to at least understand where you're coming from and why what you are making exists. There is very, very little in the magic community that is coming out that has not already been done in some fashion or was not inspired by something. There's very rarely anything that's truly, truly new. Doesn't mean there can't be, doesn't mean you can't be that person, but you need to understand that. And I'm not going to use the standing on the shoulders of giants trope because everybody says that, but I am going to say that it's important to be able to look back and understand how much work was put in, how people stopped and thought about their magic and thought about how they wanted it to be perceived by people and how they wanted it to be perceived by the world in general. It wasn't about them. It wasn't about their ego. It wasn't about inflation of self. It was about trying to make the world better. And as a matter of fact, magic exists in the first place, from what I understand. It exists in the first place to heal. It was created by shamans as a placebo to help people convince themselves that they were healing. And if you think of it that way, it's truly beautiful. Magic can be used to heal. And that can help inform where you're going. And so that sort of leads into the way that I think about creativity. And I apologize if I'm not coming across all that clear.
No,
My brain goes a million miles an hour, but some of you may have seen a film that came out quite a long time ago called Robots. And Robots was famous for a line in it that said, "See a need, fill a need." There is plenty of magic out there that exists only for the sake of itself. But if you can create magic to fill a need, if you see something in the community or something in your personal world, in your experience, in your life, that is being if you see a need somewhere and you think to yourself, God, wouldn't that be better if? You are on your way to filling a need. You are on your way to understanding what it takes to make magic. So I would say, when it comes to creativity, stop and think about the need that you want to fill. And I know there are some people that work backwards, where they start with the effect and then work backwards to the method. I've done that. Or they start with the method and go, well, what can I do with this? I've done that as well. That's not something I can give you, that information. That's something that is kind of intrinsic in the moment with you as a person, what feels right to you. And the last piece of advice that I give is, don't limit yourself to what you see in the magic community. Some of the best magic, and Paul Harris is a great example of this, some of the best magic is what occurs naturally. And I don't mean trying to do organic magic with stuff that you just happen to find everywhere. That's great too. But I mean really finding inspiration in what you love, whether that's music or books or writing or puzzles, whatever your interests are. That's what makes your magic great and genuine and more willing to be received by people. The effect doesn't even have to be that good, as long as, and I'm not saying don't make it good, really try to make it good, but people are so much more accepting and forgiving when the magic that you create in the moment for them is relatable.
Yeah, that's great
Bit of,
advice.
bit of a rant, but
No. It's really great advice. I want to ask you one more question on creativity, because one thing that I've noticed you have an innate ability to do is take something that a lot of magicians have dismissed and renew it or reinvigorate it. And a couple of examples is your work on the Svengali deck, which is incredible. You know,
thank
you
you.
turn that on its head over and over again. But also color sticks. You know, color sticks is something that everybody probably had them lying on their shelf, and you go and take this prop that everybody uses, and you
Yeah.
create, you know, one of the most visual walk around pieces that I've ever seen. And you
Sorry.
changed it. That's okay. You changed it technically. You changed it presentationally, and it's almost unrecognizable from where it was. And the same with your work with the Svengali deck as well. Is there any advice on that? Because I think as magicians, we buy a trick, we do it the same as everybody else, we put it in the bottom drawer, we move on. But wouldn't it be great if we took these tricks and really made them our own, which is what you've done over and over again?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when it came to the hot rod in particular, I've worked in 3 different magic shops, and the second magic shop that I worked in was in Hollywood, Hollywood Toys and Costumes. It's not a shop itself, but it had a little magic shop in it, and I would have some downtime. And when it comes to, especially these days, in the few brick and mortar magic shops that exist, especially if younger guys are behind the counter and you say, "Hey, what's that?" A lot of times they won't be able to tell you what it is, or they won't be able to demo it, and you're not going to get a lot of information. And they'll go, "Well, let's find out." You should know, if you're working in a magic shop, you should know what it is that you're selling. So I spent a lot of time learning almost every effect that we had there, or at least a piece from a DVD. Like, if some of the DVDs had plastic on them, some of them didn't. If they didn't, I put them in our DVD player and I would watch them in my downtime, and I would learn at least one effect. So people go, well, what's that? And I go, well, that's Extreme Dean. That's some of his greatest close-up material. As a matter of fact, let me show you something you can learn. And I would do No Extras from Extreme Dean, which is one of the best Matrix effects that there is, stuff like that. And so I remember seeing all these basic magic effects that we would have, or props like the Hot Rod, or Svengali deck, Invisible deck, Mirage deck, whatever it may be. And Legal Tender, remember that one where you tap? It's one of my favorites. Have you ever seen anybody else do anything other than tap and it changes?
No.
No, because nobody does. But they don't have to. That was one of the other things that I worked on, is I would take those pieces and go, all right, I know what I'm supposed to do with this, but do I have to do it that way? And if the answer is no, go wild. Take it and experiment. Combine it with different pieces that you have. Try holding it a different way. Try looking at it from a different angle. Try holding it up to the light. Try putting it behind something and hold it up to a mirror. See what you have around you and open yourself up to the possibility of this thing becoming something else. It's sort of like the idea of art, of a painting, right? The artist had something in mind when they created it. They built it based on their interpretation of the vision they had in their head. Every single person that comes up and perceives that piece of art from that moment on interprets it differently. Even if the point of view is, even if the assessment is the same, the point of view is different, right? So if you allow yourself to look at it like that, where you say, I know what someone else thought this was supposed to be, but I'm seeing it a different way, you can create absolute miracles. And at my lectures, I would close with my color Stix routine. The point being, I know that all of you, and I know all of you watching this right now, I'll pretty much guarantee that anyone watching this right now has at least one thing that's in their bottom drawer, or that's put to the side, or it's in their closet that you bought because you thought it looked cool and you ended up rarely or never using it. I challenge you right now, and yes, I'm going to point. I know it's rude, but I don't care because I'm in the middle of this. I'm going to challenge you right now to go to wherever you keep those sad, those sad little toys that never got love, and point at one. Close your eyes and just reach in and grab something. And open your eyes and look at it and try to see it from a different point of view. Don't look at it as a magician. Look at it as an author of a new story.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's fantastic advice. Wow.
Yeah. And it's not easy. Like it's not something that's you're not just going to pick up a Sharpie and go, well, that would be cool if I could turn this into an elephant. Like it's not. The ideas don't just suddenly come to you all the time. Sometimes they will. Other times, you just have to stop and think about it. And again, I know this sounds really lame because I'm not giving you specifics, but it's because I can't. Creativity is in you. It's not something I have control over. I don't know how you perceive the world. I don't know why you perceive it that way. I don't know how you grew up. I don't know what your influences are. I don't know what kind of music you like, what kind of books you read. I don't know. But you do. And if you are willing to take those influences and willing to cease your bias, the world will open up to you.
Wow. Inspiring words, my friend. Really are inspiring words. That was fantastic. Yeah. I want to bring things onto another passion of yours, and I want to know where all this came from, because this is very left field. All of a sudden, a few years ago, you start becoming the puzzle guy. like up until a point, it was like Eric Stevens, amazing creator, innovator, blah, 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 blah. And then suddenly it's like, well, Eric Stevens has got another puzzle. I'm like, where did this come from? Where did this string to his bow come from? So, and probably as many people know you now for your wonderful puzzles and your, I don't even know how to describe it because it's incredible, that they do your magic. So where did this come from? And tell us more about what it is that you do, because I know you make bespoke pieces for people as well. And so can you talk us through
Sure,
that?
sure. So when COVID hit, obviously we all lost everything. We lost all our work, our ability to do much of anything at all, especially at the beginning. We couldn't go out and get day jobs. Some of us were lucky enough to work from home, but not everybody could. And I remember being stuck going, I need to make money. I have a family. I need to be able to provide. And I've always loved puzzles, thanks in part to my father, who used to travel all the time for work, and he would go to Japan and bring back these handmade wooden puzzle boxes, and which were just these koseki boxes, which are just gorgeous, gorgeous handmade pieces. And I've always loved challenges and riddles and things that work my brain. I try to see brain and mind at the same time. My brain, that work my brain out. And I thought to myself, all right, I have very little woodworking experience. I have no metalworking experience. I do not have access to either of those things. What if I wanted to make a puzzle, if I wanted to just try it, what do I have? I have thousands of playing cards. I've got decks everywhere. This is I'm not going to run out anytime soon. So let me get to work. And the first thing I tried to do was build an approximation of a puzzle that my aunt gave me when I was very young. It's got a bunch of different names. The Mexican box is one of them. It's where you have what looks like, sometimes it's wood. Mine was plastic, clear plastic. And the idea is that you have an object inside it, and there's these two rings that wrap around it, and you have to try and open it. And the idea was that you would grab it from the corners and it would slide out. And my aunt had given me this with a $20 bill in it and said, if you can open this, you can keep the money. Challenge accepted. And it took me a little while, but I figured it out. And I thought, okay, can I recreate this with playing cards? Not really, but I managed to come up with something that eventually became my easiest puzzle model, the tumbler. I also created, and if I tried to do this again now, I would be able to do it better. But at the time, because I really love Dan Brown, I love Da Vinci Code, and I love the cryptex. And so I created a cryptex out of playing cards with wheels and numbers that turned, that actually locked and unlocked. And if you just pulled it apart, it's going to come apart. But it was the concept that really excited me. And as time went on, I created new models and new ideas. And I have a couple here, actually. So so this is my favorite. This is my favorite standard model. This is called the Verso. So it's a puzzle box. It's a drawer box. So you see the drawer doesn't open. So you have to figure out how to open it. And it's got the only parts that aren't playing cards are the tape, the glue, and these little rubber feet. But everything else is 100% playing cards all the way. And I was creating custom puzzle boxes for my friends to keep them busy during the pandemic. So I created a puzzle for Adam Wilbur. His was the first, and he'd actually solved it on Facebook. Facebook Live, which was a lot of fun. I made one for Michael Kaminskis. Now, I'm going to say this publicly. There is a gentleman who is probably watching this, for whom I had started making a puzzle last year, and it's not done yet. I know he's probably really frustrated that he hasn't received it yet. And I want you to know, sir, as we talked about, it will be done when it's done. I want to do it right for you. And that's one of the problems, is it's completely customized. And so I want to try and get it done within a few months, but I want to also do it right. And so the idea was that I created this 10-question questionnaire of pretty personal questions, not like super personal, but enough that they make you think. And the idea is that it will give me your answers and I then use your answers to build the puzzle box. So now when you solve it, it's not just a mental challenge, it's also an emotional journey because you kind of rediscover yourself along the way.
That's great. That's really cool. Wow. And where can people get these puzzles? Because you do, as you say, bespoke make them for individuals. Like where do you have a website specifically for your puzzles, Eric?
Yeah, yes, I do. And I don't know if it's possible in the editing process later, but if you can, the website will be right here beneath one of us. It will be www.ericstevensmagic.com/shop. And it will be able to take you to where all my magic products are, including my puzzles, my 3 standard models, and depending on when this comes out, the bespoke option should be available again. I have taken that down for now just because of my workload, but when you jump on the website, when you see this, it might be up again, and if it's not, just contact me. But yeah, you can find them on my website. They will also be sold on a well-known magic website in December. November, December, you will be able to see them as part of a promotion. I'm not going to say any more than that, but I think you'll be able to see them, and they're custom versions using playing cards from this company, which I think are really cool. They are also available on Puzzle Master, which is a Canadian website. So if you like my puzzles, but you don't want to deal with shipping from America, you can buy them from Puzzle Master. And yeah, I'm trying to get them in as many places as I can, and then seems like people are really enjoying them, and they're also unique. The medium is, as far as I've been able to tell in my research, has never been done before at any point in time, and it's difficult for me to imagine anyone trying to rip these off, and only because they take so long. There's so much attention to detail that goes into them. There's so much work, and I will say though, I care so much about this product that if someone did try to rip me off, and if you bought from whomever put these out and you already have one of my puzzles, you will be able to tell the difference. I promise you.
Wow, that's great. Have you ever thought about sending them to Chris Ramsey? Because there's a guy that's got a fairly big following. He's got a subscriber or two, and he's probably the only other person I can think of that's as obsessed about puzzles as you are.
Yeah, well, actually, the 2 top puzzlers on YouTube right now are Chris Ramsey and Mr. Puzzle, who's from Germany. And I sent one to Mr. Puzzle because I can actually contact him. Chris doesn't answer anything ever because he's so busy. So I was able to contact Mr. Puzzle through Instagram, and I sent him a custom version of my puzzle lock, and he solved it on his channel, which was really cool. But I get the question about Chris Ramsey all the time. And I have decks of his first playing cards of different generations off to the side here. And my plan is, once I have created some more ideas and mechanisms, because they have to come from nowhere, essentially. There's no frame of reference. Since nobody else is doing this, I have to come up with everything from scratch. Occasionally, I try to take puzzle mechanisms that exist and adapt them, but most of the time, I have to just come up with my own. So what I want to do is acquire a skill set of different mechanisms and ideas, and eventually, when I feel like the time is right, put together a puzzle using his own playing cards, and then send that to him. And try to make it, if not as difficult as I would like it to be, at the very least fun and entertaining for him and his subscribers. And the best part is, these custom puzzles that I make do not exist for anyone else ever. I try to make sure I don't even copy mechanisms. I try to make everything unique. So no one will get a puzzle that has anything like anybody else's. And so that's why I wasn't worried about Adam solving his online. So I'm not worried about Chris Ramsey when he solves his, because no one's going to have anything like either of those.
Wow. That's incredible. That really is. Well, here's one more question for you, Eric. You've
Sure.
you've done so much. I mean, we've talked about all of the books that you've written, all of the products that you've published, and your puzzles have become very, very popular very, very quickly. What's next for Eric Stevens? And what I mean by that is, like I say, you have done so much, but is there anything else left on your magical bucket list that you want to tick off? I mean, you've talked about how you have various different streams of income, and magic isn't solely the one thing that you do, which is cool. But when it comes to magic and puzzles, you've written 7 books. Is there an 8th book in the works? Are you going to be releasing stuff through other dealers, or are you going to continue to self-publish? Is there other stuff you want to achieve in magic? What do you want to achieve with your puzzles? What does the future look like for Eric Stevens?
I will tell you some, but not all.
Okay.
Uh, I am working currently on a a set of 3 books, which will hopefully be my very first hardcovers. So everything else is softcover. A series of 3 books, which each book will be dedicated to something specific, and the first book will be effects that are entirely based around the senses, because magic, we focus so much on visuals that we forget that we have many other senses possible to play on. So there is magic in the book that deals with visuals, of course, but also on magic that you can only feel, magic that you can only hear, magic that you can taste and smell. So it's supposed to try and break the mold a little bit and say, look, you can do more. You just have to be willing to see and taste and smell and hear and feel more, right? So there is that. The other 2 books will not be the senses, but they will be relegated to other things that I'm not going to talk about. And then I have some stuff that will be coming out with a new magic company that's going to be starting soon. I can't give you any more details on that yet, but I will say that there will be a new book test, which is unlike anything that I think anyone's ever really done. So I'm excited to put that out. In terms of puzzles, I will say one thing, and again, this is not trying to brag, but it's something that I am proud of. I had sold a set of my puzzles to a gentleman last year during COVID and the pandemic, and one day he sends me a message out of nowhere, and he says, "Do you know who Stephen Sondheim is?" And I'm a theater kid, so and for those of you who don't know, Stephen Sondheim is one of the most famous composers of musical theater to have ever lived. He did Sweeney Todd, Into the Woods, Follies, a bunch of them. And he says, "Do you know who Stephen Sondheim is?" And I say, "Yes, I do, absolutely." And he says, "Well, I'm puzzle friends with Stephen Sondheim," because apparently Steve collects not a lot of puzzles, but specific kinds that interest him. And they would email images of things they thought were cool back and forth. And he said, "I've sent him pictures of your puzzles." That's a really big deal for me. And that would have been enough. But a few months later, I got an email from Stephen Sondheim.
No.
And he asked me if I had a catalog where he could buy some. And he bought 3 puzzles, 2 for himself and 1 for Jules Fisher, who has the most Tony Awards for lighting and design on Broadway ever, which is 9. And he and I write back and forth, and he really likes the puzzles, and that was amazing for me. So I have been able to break into a few more avenues. So hopefully, in terms of what's next for the puzzles, that will help open up some more avenues for getting into different things. I'm also working on this is a prototype. It's all wood right now, but it should be wood with acrylic. But this is a packing puzzle that I designed. It's not playing cards, but it's called Unlucky 13. You have 11 pieces here and 2 more here, which need to fit in with the rest of these. So once I get everything figured out, hopefully I'll be able to put these into stores, bookstores, game stores, Barnes & Noble if I'm lucky. We'll see. And then finally, I'm working on a new show. I was doing my one-man show in Vegas called Inevitable. Some of you saw it. Most of you probably didn't, just because COVID. We didn't go anywhere. But I wanted to create a new show, which was more. It was along the line. Remember, I said magic heals, right? Magic was meant to heal. So my first show was designed as a form of catharsis. It healed me by talking about certain things that had happened in my life that were difficult, while also giving the opportunity, or I'm sorry, giving the audience the opportunity to heal themselves. Remember, it's not about making magic believable, it's about making magic relatable. So I tried to make the magic relatable and therefore heal people. This next show is going to have elements of that, but it will be more about focusing on their story instead of mine. And so the show, I'll give you the title, but that's all I'm going to give you. The show is called Based on a True Story.
Okay.
Yeah, and part of that is because the phrase true story is used a lot, right? We say this is based on a true story, or we say true story, bro, or whatever. We talk about things that are happening. But the phrase true story is simultaneously honesty and an oxymoron.
Yeah.
And that's really exciting to me. So Based on a True Story will be a show that involves stories of my own, creating new stories for the people that are attending, creating stories together in the moment, and also talking about how poetry saved my life and how words and books are everything to me. Like I said, it's all about stories, about connecting with people, and yeah, it's gonna be cool. Once it gets where I want it to be in my head, and it's already on a positive trajectory, but I feel like once this is ready to show people, I think that it has the potential to really truly make a difference.
And where are you hoping to do that show?
Initially, it's going to be here. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, because as you say, you have had a show in Vegas before. Is that ultimately the goal, or you have other ideas as to where you want to put it?
Well, the first few performances are going to be here in my hometown, because these are people that know me. These are people that will give me honest feedback that I can say, what did you like? What did you not like? And there's a nice balance of people I know and people I don't know. And I've wanted to do my show here for a long time. People have wanted me to do the show here, so it's going to start here. I'm not going to do it virtually. I refuse. And I'm not saying that because virtual shows are bad, because they're not. And I respect so much the people that can do it successfully. It's not my bag. I cannot get on board with it for just what I want to convey. You really need to be there. So what I want to do is perform this show wherever I can, for people that are willing to see it and willing to open their minds.
That's amazing. That's so cool. I have to ask you one more question about the show. You dropped something. Well, you dropped something earlier when you were talking about the show, and I just need to pick up on that. Poetry saved your life?
Yeah.
Huh?
So, and it'll go into more detail in the show, but I'll just make it really basic. So I discovered at a very crucial point in my life that the best and most reliable form of self-expression for myself was poetry. I used to write fiction a little bit, but I realized that poetry was truly where I could take what was hurting, what was eating away at me, what was gnawing at my heart and my mind. And by putting ink on paper, it eased it. It freed me of it. And I went through some very, very, very difficult times over the last 6 or 7 years. And there were moments that I would not have made it through without being able to express myself in the form of poetry. If I had not been able to get it out, it would have consumed me. And I would probably be dead.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah, it's and part of that was because, and you can, feel free to take this out in editing later if you want, because it is a little bit heavy. But in December of 2019, I was working on a cruise ship with my fiance at the time, and it was 2 weeks of the Caribbean and performing magic on the ship. It was amazing. It was one of the best experiences I ever had. But due to a still confusing and complicated situation, there was a point one night where I almost took my own life. And originally, the only thing that really saved me, that gave me that very rare moment of clarity that not everybody is lucky enough to get, was the knowledge that there was no amount of pain or anguish that I would be feeling that I could get rid of by ending it, that would not be felt 100-fold by my friends and my family. That's it. That is the only thing that physically saved me at the time. And I was so afraid that I would do it again, that I would put myself in that position again, even if it wasn't at the ship, that I terrified myself, and this darkness just filled me. And that, along with an enormous amount of stress and very severe depression, anxiety, nearly destroyed me. But I realized when I took pen to paper that it wasn't that it was going to be okay. It was more that the pressure, this immense monster that was sitting on my shoulders, got off for a little while, and I could make it through for another few days. I could make it through for another few hours, another few minutes, another few seconds. And that was enough. That gave me hope. That kept.
Wow. Thank you for being so honest, Eric. Seriously, because I think there's probably a lot of people, especially with the last 18 months, that are struggling at the moment, especially performers and magicians. We've been put into a situation where we've not been able to do what we love. Over here in the UK, we had adverts saying, "Hey, your industry isn't relevant. Maybe you should retrain." And it's been difficult. And I know lots of magicians and performers and actors and actresses that have struggled, really struggled. People that have left the industry completely, really talented people that have left, sold all their gear, turned their back. People who were incredible and they've just walked away. So many magicians, it really struggled over the last 18 months. So to hear your experiences and how you've managed to get past that, and move on with what you're struggling with or what you were struggling with, that's great to hear. Thank you for being so honest.
Oh, you're very welcome. And again, it's part of the catharsis. It's part of the healing. It's part of the therapy. Is not being so afraid to talk about. Because here's the thing: in my show in Vegas, I tell that story, and I talk about some other things that were very difficult for me growing up and through the course of my life, and the reason I talk about it is because the reason stuff like that, and now the word like suicide is an example, right? That's a buzzword, that's a trigger word for people, so I don't use it. But the idea of being put in that position and talking about it is taboo to people. But the only reason it's taboo is because we're so afraid of judgment. We're so afraid of other people looking at us as weak or lesser than because we weren't able to suck it up and get on with our lives. And what I needed to do was talk about it so that people would know it's okay to talk about this. It's okay to feel things. Don't bury it. Don't let it fester in yourself, because then it comes out in terrifying ways. and it can destroy yourself, it can destroy your family, it can destroy your life because you. It's not. I'm not saying like it's your fault for not talking about it, but especially because society often makes it, like I said, a taboo subject. It's something that we are not encouraged to discuss. But I needed to, because it needed to be talked about, not just for myself, but for other people. And I had someone who we've had a falling out now, but I had a friend who came to the show, and afterwards he said, "Do you really have to talk about depression? Like, really have to?" And I didn't know what to say to him, but I wish afterwards that I'd said, "Yeah, I do. I need to discuss this because it's not magic, but it's part of why this experience is relatable. It's part of why this experience exists the way that it does, because I have the opportunity to use magic to heal. Yes, I could be the guy that goes out there and does card tricks and coin tricks and makes a silk appear and entertains people, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But the fact of the matter is, Craig, I am not that person. I have evolved. I have changed because life has changed me, and because I have chosen to change. And when it comes to this stuff, I'm honest about it because I need people, your viewers, whoever's listening, whoever's watching, and anyone that I perform for and talk about this to, you need to know it's okay. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to discuss it. It's okay to let people know how you're feeling. And it's also important to find the right people who are willing to listen to you, even if that's just a therapist. If you can find a friend, that's great, but society doesn't own you.
Yeah.
You need to be able to express yourself in ways that keep you healthy and keep your mind and heart in the right direction and keep you alive. And if all it takes is to, as a friendly ear, I got one right here. So I'm here for you if you need, but I know that was kind of a roundabout way of getting to the point, but I talked about it because it needs to be talked about.
Wonderful. And that's when magic becomes more than just magic. Like you say, you're trying to reach people on a different level and use magic to help people, and that's wonderful. That really is.
Thank you. I had a guy in the front row at one of my shows that afterwards wanted to talk to me specifically because he also suffered from very severe depression. He thanked me for having the guts to talk about it. And that even if no one else for the rest of the entire run of that show said anything, that made it worth it. Knowing that I helped one person. And I think you, Craig, and other people watching this can agree that a lot of times when we perform something for somebody, we don't always receive the affirmation that we need, right? People will walk out, we will never know if what we said or what we did made an impact. Sometimes we're lucky, sometimes someone comes up and goes, "My God, that was the greatest thing I've ever seen. What you changed my life. It's incredible." And we live for those moments. We are very lucky to experience them, but we have to acknowledge the fact that that's not going to happen all the time. And so I can only hope that the majority of people I performed that show for thought about it seriously on the way home. And if they didn't, oh well, but if they did, I hope they're in a better place now.
Amazing. And what an incredible way to end the interview. Eric, I could do this for another 2 hours, my friend. I think we need a part 2 at some point because there's so many talking points that I've got here that we haven't even touched on. I think we're reaching Sean Farquhar levels of how long this interview's gone. But
I don't know about that. My awards are behind me on the shelf.
Yeah, you need to get a whole bunch of awards, and but maybe we can revisit this and do a part 2 at some point. That would be amazing.
I would be absolutely proud and humbled to do that if you so wished.
I would love you to. And I want you guys to do me a favor. I want you that down at the bottom of the screen right now, you're going to see a link through to Eric's website. He ships worldwide. Go check out his magic. You can get e-versions of his books. You can get physical copies of his books. You can get all of his products. So people ask me all of the time, where can you get the sticks for the color Stix routine? Eric has millions of different versions. I have them all over here. I take it to every single gig that I do. So you can get those from Eric, you can get other stuff from him, but also he's got all of his wonderful puzzles as well. He ships worldwide. He is an incredible person. He's also one of the nicest guys in Magic and will help anybody in any way that he can. So please support him. Go check out his shop. And don't forget, Color Stix was the product of the year, in my opinion. 2020 best trick of the year. I go and do it at every single gig. Those that follow me on Instagram know that I take that thing to every single gig.
And I'm honored by that, to see that, and also that Rylan gave it 4 billion%.
Man, Ryland does it everywhere. It's his go-to trick. He takes it to school with him all of the time. Like he can't not go to school with it. And like I took him to school. He's broken up for the summer now, but I took him to school a couple of days before the last day of school, and we were running late. So we were running in, and he was late. And then he looked in his pocket. He realized he left his color stick in the car. So we had to run back to the car just because he didn't want to go into school without having color sticks with him. And this is a kid that can do magic with pretty much anything. He can pick up a rock and do he's got skills, and he just doesn't.
He's immensely talented for his age.
And he doesn't want to be caught out without having color stick with him at all times. So, that tells you everything you need to know about it. Yeah, 4 billion%, the highest rated thing that Ryland's ever given anything. So there you go.
Well, if I may also add in something. First of all, thank you so much, Craig, for having me on the channel. Thank you for this interview. Thanks for being such a good person and a great supporter of my work. And all of you, please, if you haven't watched any of Craig's videos besides this one, please go watch all of them. There are a lot, so it will take you a while, but it's worth it. Go support him. Buy his products, help him support his family. Just continue allowing him to be the great person that he is and the great magician that he is. And you are a continued inspiration for me. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. Guys, leave a comment down below. Eric will see it, so leave a comment down below. And yeah,
I will read all of them. So
perfect. So leave a comment down below. And Eric's very active on Instagram as well. So make sure you follow him. I'll put the Instagram handle down below. Color, not the British way. COLOR, the incorrect way of spelling it. Color, the American way. Color Stix with an X. Make sure you follow him on Instagram. And yeah, I'm going to be back tomorrow with another video. So Eric, one more time, thank you very much. I'll see you guys soon.
See you guys.